And with us right now, David Safir. You are the president and founder of David Safir International. You're found on the web at davidsafir.com, and that's SAFEER.com. David, thank you so much for joining us.
It is a real pleasure to be here, Josh. I enjoy your show, and it's sort of weird to be on with you instead of listening.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. So David, you work with a lot of business owners, and you help with one of the biggest issues, especially I'd say, for, the great majority of this listening audience. Like, we've been in business for a while, and, we've maybe done some growing and scaling. We're building a team, and invariably, I have just seen this. I've talked to so many people. They're like, yep, you hit the adolescent phase of business, and all of a sudden, cash flow is a major issue where people, before in the earlier stages of business might say, hey, look, I was just working as a freelancer, I was just working, just me, one man shop. And then I decided to, expand because, I had some great opportunities. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened to all my money.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And it's this aspect, this connecting point where people need to start hiring. They put in processes, and all of a sudden the business becomes much more complex, and so does the cash flow. But they don't really realize it. It happens after the fact. And a lot of times that's when people turn to me, is they're high growth businesses that have just hit a wall.
Yeah. So why does this happen?
Well, there's multiple reasons. Number one is people don't track their cash flow. Number two is they don't understand the difference between cash flow and P&L. It is oftentimes I show up and the president of the company will look at me and say, David, and he'll hand me his tax return or he'll hand me his P&L and say, I don't understand. My accountant's telling me I made $500,000 last year. Where'd all the cash go? And there's a major disconnect. And these are people who oftentimes have a controller or have a really good bookkeeper. And what I have to show them is it's not in the P&L, or it's oftentimes in the balance sheet. One owner in particular had $1 million in inventory for a $2 million a year business. $500,000 was free and clear. Said, that's where your money went. It's all in your inventory. If we sell that inventory that's free and clear, that's how you're going to get your cash back in business.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons for different companies.
Yeah. It seems like this should be much more common sense. So it's, I'm always struck by the number, and we've experienced this, and that is like, I'm pretty smart in business. Business is good. We're getting new customers. Everything, if I'm just casually glancing at my business and not digging down into the numbers, everything looks good from the outside. And it's those hidden, and it's not even like the business is coming in, but maybe there's like a 30-day net, or there's some sort of delay between cash collected and investments out, and that can absolutely grab you and bite you in the butt.
Absolutely. And even if you're looking, most people look at month to month. I don't know if you do that. So they say, these are the bills we have to pay this month. This is what we're expecting to come in. Oh, look, we've got extra money. That's great. We'll be fine. But the reality is most people don't pay bills on a monthly basis. And certainly the cash doesn't all come in one great big lump. So oftentimes, breaking it down week to week, you start noticing timing delays where there might be a lot of bills paid at the beginning of the month and the revenue comes in at the end. Or you've got bi-weekly payroll makes a big lump every 2 weeks, and the money doesn't come in the same way. So a lot of times it's a timing issue, Josh. And especially if you're using accrual accounting instead of cash-based accounting, it's all sort of smoke and mirrors and theoretical profits and theoretical expenses. And you got to get real. When exactly is money coming in? When exactly is money going out?
Yeah. And listen, we should say, David, that if and here's another thing I've seen this too. And again, I'll speak for myself too. Some business owners may look at a cash flow issue and take that as a sign that something's bad, like they are incompetent, or like they are something's wrong with how they're doing CEO stuff. Right. And what would you say to someone who feels embarrassed, or they feel guilty, or they feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm a loser right now?
I would tell you that the system's against you. What does that mean? When you go to business school, when you go and take a course on accounting or other things, they're not teaching you how to do small business accounting and how to take care of a small business. Right. If you're lucky, you'll take some entrepreneurship classes. But even there, the people teaching it were taught by universities who care about what? Universities prepare people to go into big, massive companies. And big, massive companies hire specialists for every aspect of cash flow. So don't feel embarrassed. You weren't taught. Your CPA wasn't taught. Your bookkeeper wasn't taught. You just kind of realize it's something different and a different way of thinking. It's, thoughtful entrepreneurship. It's a mindset. Yeah. Very much thinking cash flow is a different mindset than thinking P&L or balance sheet.
Yeah. I think one thing we see very commonly, and it's very akin to this, is, if I'm a dentist and I went to dentist school and I'm really good at working with patients, I'm really good technically. Again, they didn't teach me accounting in dental school. No. They didn't teach me marketing in dental school. Like, of course you're not going to know all that stuff. And I almost want to say, look, none of this is your fault, right? It's not your fault. Absolutely. You just got to surround yourself with people that are going to be looking out for you.
The best dentists, not the best technically, I'm sorry. The most profitable dentists generally have a practice manager who they know exactly how to set things up. They know how to deal with all this stuff. Let me tell you you talked about growing sales and somebody feeling guilty. Well, the other thing that happens when cash flow is lacking, one of the first things people think is we need to sell more. But you mentioned it earlier that sometimes when you sell something, you could have expenses, cash expenses out before you see a dime in. If you've got a team that has to be paid, but the client's not going to pay for 30 days, you've got 30 days of expenses with your team. If you have to buy inventory. And then the other thing is sometimes there's businesses that say, hey, I made a sale. So great, where's the cash? Oh, cash? Well, we just signed the contract today. Ah, okay, so when are you shipping? In 2 months. Oh, okay, so we'll see the cash in 2 months. Oh, no. The contract is that we'll invoice in 30 days. So all of a sudden, your quote unquote sales that are supposed to pick you up actually drag you down. And if you'd understand that, you could end up getting yourself in real trouble. And that's one of the things I see with companies very often is their sales are actually a drain on cash initially, and they don't see the benefit for a while.
Yeah. So what's the solution if someone says, well, yeah, we're just behind. Like, we have good business. Like, we have great stuff coming up ahead. Things are real. All the indicators look really good. Like, the number of conversations we're having in our sales cycles, everything's looking very rosy. So I feel like we're making the proper investments. So is the solution they just need access to capital to kind of bridge all of that? Or is it, well, listen, you just got to slash and cut, man, your expenses.
It's going to very much depend on the situation. Both of those scenarios are possible. But what it really takes is sitting down and understanding your particular circumstances. And if you've got this huge pipeline where you're going to double sales, predictive model, then you got to say, okay, what happens to my overhead expense? So I need a bigger building. Do I need more telephone lines? Do I need more computers? Do I need more other capital equipment to bring on those people that are going to support that? Or is it purely, if you've got, for example, a software product, the incremental cost of selling one more unit of online software is negligible, where it's probably 5 or 10% of the total cost. And even then, sometimes that's paid for through onboarding fees.
Mm-hmm.
So the businesses can vary hugely, just depending on how much capital is required to grow, how many people are required to grow. And those are basically your variable costs over time
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to grow as your company grows. Identify those, and then you're on your path towards understanding what happens if you start growing your sales a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So David, what's your background that led you into this space?
You know, I never thought I would get into this. I started out in sales, and then I worked my way into general management, and I was the vice president for one of the divisions in Kodak in Latin America. And I was told we better turn this around or we're going to shut it down. And all of a sudden I started looking at the P&L. Too often times salespeople are just looking at profit, or sorry, at revenue. But what really matters is the bottom line. There's some exceptions to that. So that was my first personal experience with it. But then I realized, you know what, I worked for my dad when I was 22 years old, and his company was in financial trouble. And they ran a spreadsheet that showed the bank the money coming in, the money going out. And guess what? The bank extended them more credit and more credit till they were finally able to dig their way out. And I realized that this is how I always thought that businesses were run. And it was a big surprise to me when I started doing some consulting work that people had absolutely no idea of how to do cash flow modeling. So I started helping some people, and just it blossomed from there. And I realized there's a huge vacuum in the marketplace of people who can help companies and of knowledge and information available about how to fix your cash flow, how to identify it, and then how to manage it. Because that's part number two. First is identifying it, but then I don't want to just sit here and be a victim of my cash flow. I want to dictate as best as I can. When is my money coming in? How much is coming in? When is my money going out? How much is going out?
Yeah.
Getting credit lines in advance versus, oh, I need money tomorrow. No one will loan you money when you need money tomorrow. And so these are the types of things that are mental games, thoughtful parts of the cash flow management, not just forecasting or history.
Yeah. So someone listening to our conversation right now is motivated and they're like, all right, David, I need some help. What's the best way to find help?
Call me. I'd be glad to help.
I was hoping you'd say that. Yeah.
You know, I wish I could say, go talk to your financial advisor, but the vast majority of them will not understand this or not be able to proactively help you. They're historians. That's the nature of the teaching we have in our schools. There are some other people, look around for cash flow managers, but I'm telling you, a lot of times it's one trick up their sleeve. Use factoring, which if you don't know what that is, that's selling your accounts receivable to somebody else and they take 5%, or 4% or 2%. It's expensive. Or make sure all your receivables come in right away. That's one solution. I've identified 135 ways to manage your cash. And the only ones that are going to work for you are the ones that are appropriate to your situation. So I literally am looking for peers to collaborate with and to work with. And there's a few out there, but they're hard to find.
Yeah. So what is it that you provide education? Tell me what your products or your offerings are.
You know, at the most simple, follow me on LinkedIn. And 4 to 5 times a week, I am addressing a cash flow topic. Find me on my YouTube channel. I've got topics on there as well. But I've just launched a course called Winning the Cash Flow Game that takes people from the very basics down to all the way through being able to set up step by step a cash flow system. And it depends if your company's complex. I've got a good spreadsheet model for you that if it's complex, but a lot of people can get by for now just with the basics. And I've got a spreadsheet for that. It'll walk you through every step of the way, the technical parts. But for me, because technically you can learn fairly easily, the most important part is the mindset exercises that are part of each chapter that help you think about how to manage your cash.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, like I said, I love doing what I do. I'll be frank. It's like, I've got some good, I've got a really good tax guy. I've got a, CFO. I've got a financial strategist. Like I surround myself because I know it's kind of my weak spot, but I know that if I surround myself with the right people and the right resources, then I won't fall behind in those areas of my life. So David, I see also that you offer a free ebook on your website.
Yeah, and that's a good one. If I remember right, it's the 10 habits of effective cash flow managers. And so that one, go in there. I have no follow-up emails right now. I'm a terrible marketer, but I'm trying to get better because I want to help more people.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get spammed is my point. I never intend to do that. But you'll learn 10 habits. And I'd suggest at the end of the ebook, it says which 2 to 4 habits you're going to implement. You can't implement all at once. But even just, I'll tell you the number one thing I see, the bookkeeping's messed up. If you don't have good bookkeeping, you need to invest in a good bookkeeper. Number 2, I see people don't have reports that are meaningful. So but you can't do that until you have your good books. Number 3, they avoid finances like the plague. Nobody goes into business to deal with finance all the time, except for people who are in the finance industry.
Right.
So the third thing I'd suggest is get into a habit of getting reports from your bookkeeper, your finance person, your CPA, whoever it is, have them run the reports at least once a month and go over them and make it a half hour to an hour meeting. Yeah. If you can, from a cash flow perspective on cash, that should be weekly, 15 to 30 minutes, but get other people involved so you as the entrepreneur can go about doing what you do best.
Yes, right. And of course, being able to make decisions, business decisions, with that at your side is really just going to help you make much smarter decisions for the growth of your company as well. So David Safir, this is fantastic. Your website, davidsafir.com. It's like David Safer with an extra E in there, SAFEER.com. David, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. It's been a pleasure. Love being on your show.